women do want you to approach them in person. You should be able to read the situation to feel like there is an appropriate segue in order to do so. You don't want to do it in a way that it seems, totally inappropriate. But in general, if you are reading the situation right, if you are carrying yourself in a way that you're confident, you're assertive, you're decisive, you know what you want, and you don't really care what happens as an outcome. Your whole goal should be to make the situation, make the interaction positive. And so focus more on how well you're able to be social, and then it will come naturally. And so if you develop that on your own just by talking to men, women, strangers, people in general, it's going to get easier to be able to approach women that you're interested in. And so really having that like no agenda kind of attitude will really help the outcome be a better one. Yes, I definitely believe that marriages can last in today's world. Even, in the time of coronavirus, you can see how quickly things can change and values can shift. But if you use the type of approach that I do when I work with clients on developing about vetting, it's a lot more helpful to pick the right partner than to have to deal with, should I stay or should I go once you recognize that it's toxic, it's unhealthy, it's complacent, and just incompatible later down the road. So in the past, people used to really opt for more companionate love. And then, in the modern times, people really got glorified with romanticism and Hollywood movies and stuff. And we sort of started chasing the soulmate love. And so if we kind of meld the two approaches together so that you can have a whole package, you can absolutely be satisfied for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but you can be ideal for each other. And when you take the time in the beginning to vet properly, you can rest assured that you've chosen an ideal partner. Well, Red, I'm happy for you that you're excited, and being a little bit scared is okay when you have genuine interest and genuine desire for someone, but be careful. You said it's only been a few weeks. I would absolutely caution you to slow down, pace yourself, and make sure that you get to know this person before you fly off the handle, okay? I don't want you to be pessimistic, and I don't want you to be skeptical, but I want you to be logical, I want you to be guarded, and I want you to really determine whether you're compatible first. And why you like this person. If it's just a physical thing, a sexual excitability that you're sensing, then that cannot be the reason that you pursue this. You have to establish the foundation of why you would make sense first before you escalate emotionally further. So you need to distract yourself, and you need to make sure you're grounded in your own self-care and your own life goals, okay? Varkey, in your situation, I would say to not force it into something that it's not meant to be. It sounds like you are more friends than anything, because if it's not a priority for both of you, then it's not a mutual situation. So you might have interest for her, but it's probably based more on the third part of my equation for an ideal relationship, which is the love part. So it's logic plus desire plus love equals an ideal relationship. And when you have a lot of time and history together or friendship, then that's when it can cloud your judgment. So you want to make sure that you're not sort of escalating it or trying to jump ahead or make it something that it's not. Just give it some time. Just let it go. If she's sort of her attention and interest is waning, it's probably because it's not an actual match. The distance shouldn't matter. If you're really interested, it should still be a priority, and it should be something that you make an effort time-wise, despite being busy, or just attention-wise, and creating that spark or keeping that spark alive. And it shouldn't be really that hard to do when the interest is genuine and the desire is genuine. Hi, Just Vibin. I wanted to clarify with you that your ideal man doesn't mean that he's an ideal man, that's some objective Ken doll out there. It really does have to be someone that is aligned with who you are and what your values are. So be careful when you project into some type really of who you think this ideal man is. There's going to be some general common qualities that you'll see in a high value man, but the ideal man for you is specific to you. So the first part of the whole process is you becoming your ideal self first and becoming the type of high value woman that a high value man would want to be with as well. Hi Troy, thanks for your question. I really like this one for married couples who are trying to have dates during the quarantine and they have kids at home. I think it could be really helpful as well, since you have the kids there, to incorporate them. So it's okay if you have the kids suggest some things that they would want to do, like maybe they are older or even if they're young and they can kind of play with it. Pretending like they're fixing you dinner and the two of you get to sit down, and obviously it might not be a very elaborate dinner if they're young, but if they are old enough, then they can kind of take care of things by making the pasta or setting the table, and then the two of you can kind of enjoy that way and also bring in the kids and help to model for them maybe some role play of how to be an employee, how to be a maitre d' or a server, and also just seeing you enjoy yourselves and being affectionate is good for them too. But for you as a couple, you have to keep things simple during this time. So whatever it is within your control, I don't know if you're literally locked down, but if you can go outside, going to explore maybe the things that you take for granted. It could be going to a park or going for a walk, having a picnic outside. All of those things can be good. Or just doing activities that normally you bypass because you're plugged in. So it could be doing a puzzle together or playing some kind of game or doing a project together. It can be really fun. Hi, Brian and Kayla too. So the 2-day rule, it wasn't really a 2-day rule in the way that it was interpreted by most people. I mentioned that you should have some kind of sexual activity, which I then later clarified was more accurately sexual connection, at least every 2 days, right? I think a lot of people assumed I was talking about explicit sexual intercourse. And if you are on my newsletter, I actually sent out a whole very long newsletter yesterday all about this subject. So I explained what sexual connection more accurately is, and that means any kind of sensual or sexual implicit connection. It can be talking, it can be flirting, it can be teasing, it can be touching, it can be some kind of sexual activity, but it doesn't have to be literal penetration every 2 days. And so that's where I think a lot of people were getting riled up and confused. So you don't have to judge yourself if 2 days pass and you haven't had sexual intercourse with your partner, but definitely make sure that you're basically infusing sexual energy and connection with your partner. When you're genuinely desiring and interested in your partner, then it should come naturally, but of course it's going to take some effort to prioritize it. And the way that I explain it to, or I was explaining this to a client, was treat it like it's exercise. And that was actually the comparison I made in that tweet. If you look at it like it's, your own self-care and your healthy discipline, sex is just another part of your health. And so when you don't feel like it, you lack motivation, you still do it because it's important to you, and ultimately it's going to make you feel good, you're going to feel energized, you're going to have those feel-good hormones sparked, and it's going to bring more closeness and intimacy between you and your partner. So it's a win-win. So definitely make sure that it's high on your list. Hi Chris, in regards to long distance in a relationship and how to keep it alive, that is no excuse for it to make the relationship tank. Especially in times of stress, crises, any types of problems like this, it is a test for a relationship to see if it truly has glue and merit, so that you know if it's genuine, if it's a priority, and if it's going to last through a lifetime of adversity. Hopefully it won't be all adversity, but there should be a level of stick-to-itiveness that it will overcome in times like this. So whether it's a long-distance relationship in the beginning or in these temporary periods of difficulty when you have to be apart for whatever reason, not much should change, really. I mean, you're going to be going through your day-to-day life as if you were together or apart. And you're going to be texting, you're going to be checking in and being transparent about what you're up to. And it should be pretty predictable at this point if you're already in a relationship. But absolutely, you need to be talking every day, you need to have video calls, and you need to be teasing and playful and flirting. I don't know what her comfort level is, but if you're in a sort of stable relationship where there's trust and there is that genuine sexual chemistry, then you should be comfortable having sexual conversations or communication throughout the day to keep that bond alive. Hi, Nick Wicks. Interesting name. So this is maybe a more complicated question that deserves a more thorough answer, but just on first glance, basically what I would say to you is don't be afraid to be very direct about it. It's important for you to play that role with your partner, especially with women, for her to know what those boundaries are and those expectations are for appropriate behavior. So you should have enough of that leadership and frame, if you want to call it that, that if she's sort of being very disrespectful or somewhat disrespectful and inappropriate, you can say, you know, that's just not appropriate. So, you know, I need you to be more mature or responsible or proactive or, you know, looking at how you can solve this problem. So if she's not then amenable to learning and growing and developing herself to be a healthier person, to handle stress, that's going to be a problem. So you'd have to address that then. But the other side to this is, and I've said this before, using an analogy of a ham sandwich, but I'll try not to repeat that exactly, but maybe explain it in a little bit of a different way. So if a person is 90% awesome, but the 10% that isn't awesome is so bad that it's a deal breaker, you have to let go of the 90% that's good. But if the 10% is, you know, relatively innocuous, you know, it's not a big deal, then that's a whole different story. So a person doesn't have to be perfect, but you cannot last and have a good outcome with someone who's almost a whole package and aligned with your values. You have to make sure that what is not great is something that you can live with for the rest of your life. Hi, Kevin. This is an interesting question, and I'm glad that you asked it because I don't often get a lot of questions about children and families. Even though I don't have children myself, I am a trained marriage and family therapist. I'm no longer licensed to practice, but my PhD is in marriage, couples, and family therapy. So in regards to how to teach this to your children, hopefully you start before they're teenagers and it's something that they see modeled by you and your wife in a healthy relationship as well. But if you're just sort of asking on face value, I would say the way to start teaching them how to lead women is to answer how they lead themselves. So they see that from you, but if you're going to teach them first and foremost how they can lead themselves well, honorably, with integrity, having character, being disciplined, taking responsibility, being healthy, fit, and having a strong work ethic, all of those things are really important, and as well as being strong and being able to be active and not be lazy. So when he's able to lead himself well, then it's going to come naturally to lead a lady. Obviously, you know, if you have a healthy lady to lead, then it's going to make a lot more sense. If you're trying to lead an unhealthy woman, then it's going to feel like rescuing or a toxic situation, and he should know that that's unacceptable. Now, for a woman, she should also see how she's expected to behave so that she has internalized those characteristics of virtue and responsibility and not being lazy and being able to serve others and be nurturing as well. So it goes hand in hand, but if you're talking about specific examples of what to do, I can answer that one-on-one if you like. Hi, informally challenged. So your question is a common one. When two people in a relationship have diverse sex drives. So one has a high sex drive, one has a low sex drive. And it creates difficulties and friction in regards to the sexual satisfaction and connection that the two of you have. So there's a couple of points here that I want to highlight. One, if you've read my newsletter or some of my other responses or listened to my videos about sexual connection, it's far beyond just sexual intercourse. So with someone who has a low sex drive, it's going to be really important to be able to express yourself in non-penetrative ways. So hopefully you are at least titillated on some level by the non-penetration sexual expression, right? So whether that's flirting, texting, videos, just, sort of affectionate touches, and maybe other types of like massages or pats on the butt or various things that will help you feel sexually connected to your partner. But in regards to the actual penetration part, this is the other element that doesn't get talked about very often. You can't really just sort of order her to do it, but it's important for her to see her sex life as just as important as her fitness life, her active life. So just because you have a low sex drive does not mean that it's an excuse to never make the effort to actually participate in sexual intercourse. So she has to see it the same way, kind of like with fitness, you have to have discipline without motivation. Even if she doesn't have the urge or the motivation to have sexual intercourse, she needs to have the prioritization of it. So it's kind of like a mind over matter in a way, and it's going to help develop positive connections on the other end of it. So hopefully that will reinforce it for her. Hi, John Doe and Dilbert. So this is going to be a short one. The answer is no. And the reason is no, because there should be enough trust in the relationship and the boundaries should be transparent, but also acceptable and responsible and healthy. So it shouldn't be necessary, but of course, if there's a reason for someone to have someone's phone, it shouldn't be secretive, or it shouldn't make someone feel uncomfortable if it's done for a normal, appropriate reason. But if you're going through your partner's phone because you don't trust them, then that's an issue. And I would just guess that that relationship is either very toxic or not going to last very much longer. So you should be able to have a conversation about it, and you should be able to tell the person the truth. If you're with someone that you really question their motives and what they're doing when you're not watching or when you're not looking or in privacy, then you have bigger issues. Hi, Adriana, or is it Adriana? I know you were joking a little bit, but I do think that you're asking seriously if this is the right thing for you to be focusing on, because you're only going to get older, and the more you focus on your children and neglect yourself, the further away you are going to be from finding a life partner. So I want to remind you, as much as it is important to focus on your children, don't forget about yourself. They need to see you taking care of yourself too. They're going to learn from you more that way than most of the things that you can do for them directly. So it's okay if you're not interested in a relationship, but remember, don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about the stereotype. It's pretty much like an internalized guilt when you get that pressure from society that you're basically undesirable, and that's going to eat away at your mental health. And so that's not good for you or for your kids or for any potential relationship that might come your way. Now, you'd be surprised, the more you focus on your own self-care and health and self-mastery, if you're, focusing on fitness and health and learning new skills and being grounded and gracious and responsible, you will attract someone, and you can't control sometimes when you have genuine interest for someone. So be mindful of that you could actually end up attracting someone before you actually consciously want it, but don't be afraid of that either. So embrace the opportunity to grow from a real relationship. Hi, Happiness Ninja. So if you've been struggling to connect with people, that is one issue. Being single for 2 years isn't a horrible thing. It's important to take the time that you need in order to heal from any relationships that were unsuccessful and maybe baggage that you could be carrying into the next one. I call it residue. I don't really like the term baggage, but most people know what I mean when I say that. So if you have had any type of trauma, any type of wounds or bad relationships, you have to take that time and you have to grow on your own as much as you grow or try to grow together in a relationship with someone, hopefully for the better. So the time alone is fine, whether you're celibate or whether you choose to date and be sexually active is a personal choice. I do not encourage women to be casually sexual with people or to have multiple sexual partners. So I'm going to assume that you were in more of a celibate mode during those 2 years. And there's so many things that you can do during that period to help develop yourself, to really get stable and secure and focused on what's important to you, and to, chip away at your goals, whether they're financial, fitness, health related, business related, whether they're family related, domestic related. There's so many things that you can do, and just reading books, learning about different things, traveling, but obviously not in an escapist kind of way. But if you're having trouble connecting with others, I would say you're probably having difficulty connecting with yourself. So those are all the same things that you should be doing in order to better connect with yourself. And if you haven't done any journaling or meditation or any kind of mindfulness activities, now's the time to start and reach out to someone like a coach or a counselor, someone like myself who does one-on-one work via video calls if you need to. Hi, Dalen. This question has come up over the years, time and time again, with the assumption that there's a particular place to meet people. There isn't. It's anywhere. As long as you're living your life, you should always be in the mindset that you could meet someone, whether online or in real life. So whatever it is that you're doing should be indicative of your lifestyle, right? And the things that are important to you. Do you hang out at bars? Do you hang out at the gym? Do you go to bookstores? Are you out and about, or are you a homebody? Are you hanging out with family? Do you have a certain type of community that you participate in, like church or a sport or some kind of community service? So how are you developing yourself as well? What are your interests? Some people are doing Toastmasters. Some people are a part of some type of kinship or friendship circle, doing different activities. So as long as you're active and putting yourself out there, developing yourself, and basically you'll be attracting people to you. So I would just encourage you to never assume that it's a bad place to meet someone, right? Unless you're in in a bad environment, and it would sort of indicate that the people there are not going to be the best type of people to try to be in a relationship with. So don't be doing those things either, if you catch my drift. But overall, just start interacting with people and be outcome independent. Just enjoy your interactions and learn how to develop your social skills, and it will happen. Hi, Augustinus. I'm curious as to what you define as rejection. This is an interesting concept that I like to go over with people and reframe for them, because a lot of times rejection isn't really rejection. It's just someone asserting themselves and their boundaries and actually communicating very well about what their response is to you, right? If they're not genuinely interested or if they're not genuinely attracted to you, then I think it should be a good thing, and people should welcome them communicating that to you. And if you interpret that as rejection and as a negative, then that may be something that you can work on. But if you just mean a person says no, they're not interested, and then you want to know if you should pursue asking them again, I absolutely don't think you should. And if you've been vetting them at all before asking them out, then you should have a good opportunity to develop that interest or get that connection started. And if you know that they're just saying no because they're unavailable or something that's contextual and not necessarily indicative of their lack of interest, then you will know that you can obviously have another go at it in a different situation and just wait for the right timing. But if it's an outright rejection, there's no reason to pursue it. That's your answer. It's almost like a little bit of Yes, being perseverant is good, but not in this sense. And it takes more self-respect to just walk away and not be upset by that. And if anything's going to turn somebody around, it is that level of confidence. So don't ask more than once and then see what happens. High quality people are just going to be harder to come by. That doesn't mean that they're non-existent. And if you're not a high quality person yourself, then you have nothing to complain about. First and foremost, you need to focus on your own value and make sure that you deserve that type of person and that you are living in alignment with those values. So without knowing anything further about you, I would suggest that you do a self-inventory and assess yourself for basically, do your thoughts and feelings line up with your behavior? Are you acting as if you are a man that commands that type of quality in a partner? Well, this is a really important topic, and it's good that you're thinking about it and trying to sort out how to problem solve rather than reacting to it. Trust is a big fundamental topic, fundamental quality that you need in a relationship. And if it starts to crack and you gloss over it, then it can be sort of a long-winded deterioration that wastes a lot of time. So one, it's good that she was honest with you. Two, it's good that she's taking responsibility. Those are green flags. And the fact that she is aware of the repercussions and still wanted to tell you, I think that is a good sign. Obviously, I think that there is room for forgiveness here, as long as you're seeing her remorse, her responsibility, and her change in behavior. You can't expect people to never make mistakes, and you have to decide what are your deal breakers. But yeah, it's a red flag if she is, not being honest with you, but were there behavioral consequences to that, or was it just slight details that maybe she can learn to never have to keep from you ever again, and understanding a better way of communicating going forward? So it's all up to you what you're comfortable with and what you feel is indicative of her character, and if she's willing to learn from it and make changes going forward. All right, I think this is the last one. So I posted the question above, and basically my response would be A, off the bat, it seems like an unhealthy or toxic relationship. You can't judge a relationship based on the best times. You have to judge a relationship based on how it fares through bouts of stress. And what is that person's stress tolerance or stress personality? So it sounds like the worst comes out of him, and you also have a blended family already, so I feel like there's a lot of residue or baggage, if you want to call it that, between the two of you. And I think you probably rushed into this marriage or remarriage, and you needed to do a lot more work before doing so. So I would encourage you to take some time apart. You might not have to rush into divorce, but take some time to focus on your self-development. And if you determine that this is an unhealthy situation and that it's bringing out the worst in both of you, then you're gonna need to prioritize your safety, and I mean emotionally, and your health, and make sure that your children and his children, well, let's just focus on your children because you don't have control over that for him, but that your children are protected from harm.